last video lesson. The next time you see me, you'll see me in person on January 2nd. So we're gonna do today, we're gonna do 4-4 day 2. Oh, it looks like my puppy wants to say hi. Come say hi, Mojo. Come say hi. Really pick him up. Mojo just wants to say happy holidays and happy new year, everybody. Right, buddy? Okay, be a good boy while I do this lesson, okay? All right, so we are going to talk about perpendicular lines. And so you learn that the symbol for perpendicular looks like this, which makes sense because those two are perpendicular. And hopefully you learned from the exploration that lines are perpendicular if their slopes are the opposite signs and they have to be reciprocals, right? So we're going to say they are opposite reciprocals. So some examples of this would be 2 and negative 1/2, negative 3/4, and positive 4/3. Right? Because they have to be opposite signs and they have to be reciprocals of each other. So if you had a 0 slope, then when you flipped it over, it would be undefined. So when you multiply these, obviously not in this case, but when you multiply slopes that are perpendicular, you always get what number? Let's check it out. 2 over 1 times negative 1/2 is negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. And negative 3 over 4 times 4 over 3 is negative 12 over 12, which is also negative 1. Okay? So that's a way to check if you do have perpendicular lines, if their slopes have a product that is negative 1. So when you're looking at equations, okay, like we have here on the bottom of the page, I'm going to do an example like the one that they've done out here, but it says determine whether the graphs of any of the following equations are parallel or perpendicular. So you've got 3 different equations, so we're going to take a look at that one. So you've got 2x plus y equals negative 7. We've got x minus 2y equals negative 4. And 4x minus y equals 5. So hopefully you can see that one there. Let me just turn this over so I can make sure. Yeah, looks like you can see everything there. Okay, so when we look at these equations, we're going to have to figure out what the slope is, right? We can't see the slope right now because it's not in y equals mx plus b form. So you'd have to move everything around, right? So we'd have to subtract 2x, y equals negative 2x minus 7. We can see that the slope here is negative 2. Once again, here we need to get it into y equals mx plus b form, so subtract x. Put a 1 in front of the x, negative 1 minus 4. We still have to divide by negative 2. So this equation would become y equals a negative over a negative is a positive. And then that would be plus 2. So this slope is 1/2. And then the last one, we'd have to subtract 4x. Get negative y equals negative 4x plus 5. And then we'd have to divide by negative 1. Looks like this guy's going to be the odd man out. Y equals 4x minus 5. So the slope here is 4. So once you look at your 3 slopes, right, you're going to look at them and you're going to say, well, are any of them the same? Because if they are the same, then they are parallel So we don't have any parallel lines here because we have three different slopes. But do we have a pair of slopes that are opposite reciprocals? Right, of course, we've got this line and this line are opposite reciprocals. So that means that this line right here is perpendicular to this line. They form a right angle. Right? So these two would be perpendicular. Okay. So that's part of what we're studying, is way to examine if lines are parallel and perpendicular. The other part is to figure out how to find the equation of a line that's perpendicular to another line. Okay, so why don't we do that next? And this is going to seem very redundant from yesterday and actually from section 4.3 because it's just the equation of a line. The hardest part is to figure out what the slope is that you're going to use. Okay, so I'll do two of the examples on the back side, and then you can finish the remainder of those with Mr. Maslanka. Okay. Actually, there's only three on the back side, so you'll just have one to do with him, and then you can do the skills practice sheet, right? And if you do the skills practice sheet, you get that done, you don't have homework tonight. I'm trying to go easy on you folks this week, okay? So it says, write an equation slope-intercept form for the line that passes through the given point and is perpendicular to the graph of each equation. So in number 2, it says it passes through 4, 2, and it's perpendicular to, I like to write that simple, y equals 1/2 x plus 1. Okay. So once again, the only thing I need from this equation is its slope, so that I can figure out what slope am I using for my equation. Okay, Mojo, we're not going outside right now, all right? Give me 5 minutes. So the slope of this line right here, we know is 1/2. So if we were finding a parallel line, we would use 1/2. But we're not finding a parallel line. We're finding a perpendicular line. So I write it like this. A perpendicular slope would be equal to, flip it over and make it the opposite sign. Right? So that's just -2. So we're going to use a slope of -2 with our point 4, 2. And once again, when we start to find the equation of a line, we always start with point slope line. Oops. So we're going to start with y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we plug in our slope, and we plug in our point. X minus 4, y minus 2. And now it's just a matter of manipulating that to get it into the form that we're asked for. So in this case, we're asked for slope-intercept form. So we have to distribute. And we have to add 2. And there you go. This line, I wish I had some space here to graph it. If we were to graph this line and this line, they would form a right angle. Okay? So they don't get too much harder than that. The only way they really do get harder is if you have to do some manipulation to this equation to figure out what the slope is. All right, so let's skip number 3. You're going to do that one in just a moment. And let's do number 4. So number 4 says it passes through -4, 5, and it's perpendicular to 4x minus 3y equals 12. So once again, what I need from this line is the slope. Okay, I can't see what the slope is right now because it's not in slope-intercept form. All right, my dog just took my marker. Hold on. Oh, gee. Mojo. Okay, I think you're waiting for me out. He's almost 2, but he still acts like a puppy. Okay. Whew. All right. So we've got to take this line right here, and we've got to get it into y equals mx plus b form. And so he's down here trying to wait for me to drop another one. We have to subtract 4x plus 12, and we have to then get the y by itself. All right, so this is going to be a negative over for negative is a positive 4/3. 12 divided by negative 3 is negative 4. Okay. So as I said before in the last section, or in for day 1, I really don't care what the y-intercept is of this line that they're giving me. I only really need the slope. Obviously I want to do that correctly, but I just want to get the slope. Okay. So if the slope of this line is 4/3, then what's the perpendicular slope? Well, I'd have to flip it over 3/4 and make it negative because it's a positive. So it's the opposite. Opposite meaning the opposite sign. Okay, so it's not always a negative. If the original is a positive, it's a negative. If the original is a negative, it's a positive. So we're going to use this slope with the point they gave me. I'm just going to write that up there. And now we're going to find the equation. Okay? Again, you should be getting very, very good at finding equations of lines, because now we've been doing it for many, many days now. And you should know that when you start, you always start with point slope form. Okay, so we've got negative 3/4, y minus 5 equals negative 3/4 times x minus a negative would be plus. And so now it's just a matter of simplifying this and getting it into y equals mx plus b. Y minus 5 equals negative 3/4 x plus, that's just going to be negative 3, right? Because the 4's would divide out. And now we just need to add 5. So y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2. Okay, so we've got our equation that is perpendicular to the original equation they gave us. So the answer is y equals negative 3/4 x plus 2 for number 4. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to let you get to work so that you don't have any homework tonight. You're going to finish up number 3, check in with Mr. Maslanka, and then also you're going to do this skill sheet right here. Okay, it's just this one sheet, but it's going to give you lots of practice with finding perpendicular lines. Please do that and hand that in to him today so I can check it. I'm going to be checking a lot of work over this break, and I'll also have your celebrations for January 2nd. Okay. Have a great break, everyone, and I'll see you next year.